Previously on agentpalmer.com, One Day Ahead spins a great story about the Tour de France and mental health. Klosterman ditches the rose-colored glasses to look back on the 90s, and I hope you enjoyed your caffeine fix from the last episode because I certainly enjoyed it. This is the Palmer Files episode 100, featuring a very special guest, my dad, Michael Stershic. We discuss the art of long-form conversation, working together, education, parenting, and even get into some nature versus nurture. Are you ready? Let's do the show! Hello and welcome to the Palmer Files. I'm your host, Jason Stershic, also known as Agent Palmer, and on this 100th episode is my dad, Michael Stershic. What you are about to hear is a conversation between father and son, who we are, where we've been, and how we've become who we are together. I would also like to acknowledge that not everyone has the relationship with their father that I have with mine. I feel very lucky to have a father who is a close friend and confidant. I know some very close friends to me who could not have this conversation you are about to hear with their own fathers. That makes this very special to me and something I'm very thankful to be able to share with those friends and with all of you. I do not take this for granted at all. For a little behind the scenes, I would like to say that the dinner I shared with my father before this recording may have been the most quiet we have ever been at a meal. It's not that we didn't want to talk to each other. I believe, as you'll hear, we enjoy that. But I think neither of us wanted to break the ice to discuss what was going to be said on this episode. As I said earlier, you'll hear us discuss the art of long-form conversation, working together, as well as discussing philosophies of parenting and education, and our very intersecting Venn diagram of interests. All of that and a whole lot more is coming your way shortly, but first, remember that if you want to discuss the episode as you listen or afterwards, you can find all contact information for myself in the show notes. My father's retired, so I guess I can pass along whatever you would like me to. Don't forget, you can see all of my writings and rantings on agentpalmer.com, and of course, email can be sent to thepalmerfiles@gmail.com. So without further ado, and for the 100th time, let's get into it. Dad, you are my father. You were my boss at one point, which probably will come up. And I know to date, as we're recording this, you have listened to all of the episodes that have released. And obviously for, many, many decades, I lived with you, probably more than you wanted. So the question to start off is, what have you learned in the episodes that preceded this that you have listened that you didn't know from being my boss and my father ahead of time?
That's a good question. And I think, first of all, congratulations on this being 100.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And hopefully I will have listened to all 99 preceding this. I've listened to all the ones that we've done to date.
Yes.
However, one of the things that I have been impressed with that I think I thought you were capable of, but I wasn't sure, is the art of long-form conversation. I think one of the things that is missing in a lot of conversations today is that they seem to be truncated or limited to a 80 character or 140 character tweet, whatever it might be. And long form conversation, which has nuance, which has ups, downs, rhythms, and flows, doesn't occur. And you've shown through the 90 plus episodes of this that you're capable of and adept at having long form conversations with diverse people. With people who have different backgrounds, people that of subjects that not so much sometimes, and sometimes more than others. I mean, it's that's one of the things that has been a great learning experience for me in the 90 plus episodes that I've listened to date.
But I think I get some of that from you because I've heard you go on. Like I don't know if it's genetic, but mom's the same way. Like and maybe it's the two of you specifically because I can't speak to my aunts and uncles as much. But like the two of you have never had problems just communicating. I guess.
I think conversing may be a better.
Okay, fine. Yeah,
a better term. But I think the answer to that is I don't think it's genetic.
Okay.
I think it's learned, and I think a lot of it came from, for me, a lot of it started in high school when we were having long, pseudo intellectual discussions in classes about a variety of topics, and a lot of it started around movies for me, having discussions on, and pretty deep discussions on movies of that time. Yeah,
I didn't get it until, well, I think I got some of it in Israel. Was the more of the debate than anything else. But it's out of the class. It's not. I don't think I got any of it. I don't want to put them all down, but like I got most of it from like Zapata and like the friends I had that I could talk to for hours.
Yeah, but that's where you tend to refine it when you're in college, and especially when you're away at college, when you have all that time, free time on your hands, and you're sitting around just bullshitting.
Yeah,
with a bunch of other people, you learn that art of conversation, and that setting. That's where you refine it. That's where you get better at it. That's where you get, you learn what you can do, what you can't do, what works, what doesn't work, and I think that's where you refine it.
Yeah, I mean, I got away from it, but I also feel like, yeah, and you saw this as my boss. But like walk down the hall and I'd be talking to a coworker for 20 minutes.
Yeah, 2 hours later, you get back to your desk.
Yeah, maybe. It depended on the coworker. But I think you were my boss at least twice because I count the internship. While both of them, I didn't directly report to you really in either.
One of them, you weren't even in my space. You weren't even in the space with me. You were across the street.
Oh, that's right.
In health education, in staff education for the first one.
Yeah.
The second one, you were in our space, but you work with Emily.
Yeah. And then the next one I was under Kim, under you. I think that for the negatives that existed, at least with the second one, for working for you, it was still probably, I enjoyed working with you more than like that overshadows all the crap of being the boss's son and having to deal with the politics.
Why did you enjoy that?
I don't know. I think okay. So from a familial place, I didn't have to sell you the full bill of goods because I don't know how we came up with a shorthand, but it felt like I could tell you. I could sell you something in 5 minutes that would take me 15 to sell to Kim. And I don't know how much of it is just I knew what to say to you to convey the thought. We need to do this, and it's done. And you're like, well, tell Kim. And then it's a little bit longer. I don't know what it is, but it was nice.
It could be that there was a trust level between us that didn't necessarily exist.
Okay.
With your direct report.
That's possible.
And that could be part of it. The other part of it is that to a certain extent, I knew where you were coming from, and that you weren't going to try to bullshit me when you knew I could vet that out.
Well, yeah, you're probably the only boss I never tried to bullshit. If I'm, I don't know.
And keep in mind, you for most things, you really didn't directly report to me.
No.
The things that you needed to come to me for were on your tech side of the job, which is when you had to make purchasing. You needed an okay on purchasing decisions or platforms or whatever it might be that you needed to purchase.
Yeah, I don't know. I liked it. I thought it was kind of it's different having like you're my boss, but my dad's across the hall. Like that was I liked that. That was fun. That was I'm glad I had that opportunity.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't. We were in tourism. I never wanted to be in tourism. That's not. I don't know if I don't know if given the choice I'd even go back. But
we weren't really in tourism. We were in marketing.
Well, okay, that's fine. But I'm just saying, it's not. I didn't know. I still don't know what I want to do. Like I didn't know then. I don't. You ended up in tourism marketing for a while and development. You did a lot of development in your career. Did you know what you wanted to be?
I didn't know what I wanted to be, and I sort of fell into the tourism marketing component by default.
Okay.
And that was as I changed jobs over my career.
Yeah.
And look back on it, the first time I was in tourism was the only job I ever regretted leaving.
Okay.
Up to that time, I had been in before I was in tourism the first time. That was my 5th job.
Okay.
And I was 30 at that time.
All right.
Or no, 32 at that time. So in 10 years, I had 5 jobs.
Okay.
And that job, when I left it to go into banking, which I went in for the money, it's the only job I ever regretted. And the reason I left that job was because at the time we had a staff of 3. And I was not home any weekend between mid-May and mid-October.
There was always something going on.
There's always something going on that I needed to be at or make an appearance at. And I thought when the opportunity came up to leave, I thought that I would never see you because you're in school.
I'm in school the other time.
The times when I'm not busy on the weekends. And when I'm busy on the weekends, you're out of school and looking for things to do. So I figured now we took you to as many things as we could at that time.
Yep.
But it was still, I knew once you hit school age, that was all going to end. And you were going to I just wasn't going to see you. And we weren't going to be able to spend as much time as a family together.
So there are 2 childhood memories with you that I still vividly remember. And neither of them are specific to date, but that's because of the repetition. I remember coming home from I guess religious school on Wednesday nights, because we would listen to Fresh Air on the ride back, and we would drive by a building that no longer exists, which is still weird to me because that building has always, for that period of time and in my memory, that building still exists. And the other one is you driving me to the velodrome to learn cycling And that one's weird because like I think the religious school one was a couple years.
It was.
The
velodrome was a couple of weeks.
And it might have been 2 summers, I think.
I don't know if it was 2 summers, but I know it was, if it was 2 summers, it was probably 2 weeks for 2 summers.
Yeah. And it just, and I still remember because that particular, to give people context, like that was when Tom Petty's Learning to Fly was on all the time because that's the song that will take me there. And I think that those aren't memories that I lost. Mm-hmm. I think I always had them. I think moving back here after college and then buying a house in the old neighborhood that forced me to use those roads more often made me remember them all the more, especially when I'm on the highway and the trip from here to the velodrome is basically the same if I take 22 and I don't cut through the back roads. And so, but those things were after you had gone to banking.
Right.
So are those things that you're saying if you had stayed originally probably wouldn't have?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
I really don't. Things might not have been the same. They may have. I just can't. I can't predict that.
That's fine. But you remember remember those drives.
I remember those drives. Yeah. And I remember having to get you back home and then getting to work.
Yeah. Yeah. It's weird coming back here. You went to college and then stayed here basically. Right. I mean,
yep.
Honesdale aside and then coming back. Can you imagine going back to Baltimore after college? Because that was the weirdest thing for me was it was a different part of the valley, but like we came back here.
I interviewed for jobs out of when I was at Lehigh, for jobs in Baltimore.
To go home?
To go back to live there.
Okay.
And I was offered one job in Baltimore, which I'm glad I didn't take.
Okay.
Because the company doesn't exist today, and it didn't exist probably 10 years after I interviewed for the company. I don't know that. I don't remember the timing of when they went out of business, but
okay.
That was for a computer. That was in computer sales.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Back in, that would have been 1974.
Okay.
So it was a whole different world of computers, and that was...
You couldn't pick them up by yourself.
You couldn't pick them up, right, exactly. So it was a different world, and that line of business disappeared 6 years in.
Okay.
So I have no idea what happened to the company. And I was offered a job here.
Yep.
And I graduated in December instead of May, early. So I got a job that I started in mid-February after I finished in December.
Okay.
And that was here.
Did you fall in love with the area while you were in college? Or did it take a little bit?
I think Mom and I decided that this would be a good place. She was willing to look in Baltimore, although she really didn't want to live in Baltimore after having some experiences down there.
Okay.
One of them, while I was interviewing for a job, she and my mother were shopping and had an interesting experience, which I won't get into.
Okay.
But she didn't want to live there. The heat and humidity, in Baltimore is, and when it gets humid here, people are complaining when it's 55, 60% humidity. When it was 80, 90% humidity in Baltimore, you just couldn't move, and that wasn't something that she was willing to put up with.
Okay.
But we did like the area. We lived in South Bethlehem when we first got married, and then moved to Fountain Hill, right down the street from where you are now.
Yeah.
But we were able to. People thought we were crazy because we would walk all over the place. We could walk to go out to eat. We'd walk to go to Godfrey Daniels for entertainment.
Yeah.
All that stuff was stuff that we would walk to from wherever we lived in South Bethlehem.
I mean, I've started to do that more recently, but I don't I don't get out as much. I'm not. That's the one thing. You and Mom are much. I will say more social than I am. I will say that.
You can say that. I think you're social, but in a different way.
Okay, I mean I've had this.
Depends on how you define social. I mean, if you define social as being out and about and a social butterfly,
that's not
you.
No.
But if you're talking about getting together with a close group of friends on a regular basis, you're pretty social.
Yeah. And
that doesn't mean getting together physically. It could be on the phone or whatever.
Well, I think I'm one of the few people that's keeping like phones in business as like a conversation tool. as a not just a text SMS platform. I've been doing this show for decades. I want to fast forward for a second. I am in college and you have a job not where Mom is. And I think that because I would talk to you on a kind of weekly basis. Mm-hmm. Maybe a little more. Maybe the average is 1.5 per week or something like that. And I think that is the setup for our relationship now. I would come home occasionally, whether you or just occasionally. But I think that sets it up because obviously I was in an apartment like a mile from the house when I first started working for you. And to Mom's dismay, I didn't come home. But it wasn't until you retired, I think we went back to what it was. I talked to you once or twice a week, and I see you a couple times a month.
Yeah.
I like how that's evolved from that moment because it feels like it evolved from that moment because after that moment, I moved back home and I stayed with you for like
18,000 years.
Yeah, it was a long time. But I look around at people that don't talk to their family willingly in that way. And I feel like it because of you through osmosis, because you talk to your brothers and Mom talks to her siblings. It feels like once a week, maybe more, but
I generally have conversations with my brothers once a week and one of my brothers at least twice a week.
Yeah. Did that come down from on high? Like when Granddad was still around,
one of the things that your grandfather said to all of us before he passed away, and it sticks to me to this day, is he said, don't lose each other.
Okay.
Because he had seen so many family members that just didn't communicate with one another. Not his immediate family, because he called his sister every day.
Okay.
After my mother passed away, he basically called her, I think it was almost every day.
Okay.
And his brother had passed at that point, and his parents had passed. So the only one of his immediate family remaining was his sister.
Okay.
And but I remember that distinctly. He was very, he said, promise me this, you guys never lose each other.
I think I've got that for my friends now, mm-hmm. because I've had friends that I have lost in that way. I don't call and then you don't call and then all of a sudden it's been 3 years and I'm probably not talking to you ever, because I'm not a Facebook person, so I'm not going to see random things pop up.
There's a frustration that I have, and you probably just expressed it in a different way.
Okay.
And that is that I used to chase friends. People, if I hadn't heard from them in a while, I would be the one to call.
Well, I got that from you then. So that's yep.
And I've stopped doing that to the extent that I used to.
Okay.
And the reason I've stopped doing it is because I have enough to do. I mean, there's a lot of people I do keep in touch with that keep in touch with me.
Okay.
And so we if I don't call somebody within a certain period of time, they'll call me and say, where you been? What's up? And I think that's the one thing I've done is just cut back in that work of getting in touch with people that I haven't talked to in a while.
Yeah. And it's not, I think that because I'm not on Facebook, which I pick on a lot, but like in this regard, Facebook is the one that will actively go out to get you to keep on the platform. So they'll show you stuff from people you haven't seen in a while. And because I don't see that, it's on me to find out what's going on.
I think people use Facebook for different reasons.
Well, sure. Yeah.
And I use Facebook for two reasons. I keep up with what's happening with my family and cousins, mainly my cousins, because they're the ones on it because they're talking about their kids.
Okay.
So I can keep up with what's happening with my cousins' kids.
Okay.
Even though half of them I've never met in person.
Yeah.
And you'll learn about stuff that way that you wouldn't otherwise know.
Yep, that's fair.
And the other one is some like high school classmates and friends like that I don't have a communicating relationship with, but I want to know what's going on.
Okay, that's fair.
And that's the only reason I use Facebook, because otherwise I couldn't care. I don't really want to use it.
And I pick on Zapata because he's like the one high school friend I still have. And there's a few like around him, but like I don't miss the fact that I don't have a high school like a real relationship with anybody in my high school class. And Zapata wasn't in my class. I mean, that's the other thing. I actually don't have a relationship with anybody in my graduating class.
Well, you have a different excuse for that. You left high school at the end of your junior year.
Well, in
the middle of your junior year.
Yeah.
So you would have had another 3 semesters with your class had you stayed.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't have had the experience that you had without that.
No, I get that. I wonder, like, because I know that one of the reasons that my college experience was so rough off the bat is because I was living that senior life-ish in college instead of as a lazy high school senior.
Right. Yeah, you didn't have senioritis your senior year.
No.
Because you were a freshman.
Yeah. So I'm glad we're here because I can talk about this. So Keystone wasn't a big campus, but it was far enough away that I could have disappeared, maybe, perhaps, but you were in healthcare at the time. And there was an office on campus that, I don't know, were you on their board?
I was the board president at that time. Yeah.
So ignoring Mom's connections to the actual campus, there were people around campus that knew you.
And Mom's connection on campus came through me. The reason that I know that is because I had her facilitate a strategic planning retreat for that board.
Okay.
At which the dean participated.
So
she got to know Mom and hired Mom to facilitate something for her at Keystone, and they kept working with her after that.
So this is why, if you go back and listen to episode 50, when I told my mother in order to get away, I'd have to move to a different country. That's part of it. Is because like you were both so connected.
Well, Mom's network was more national.
Yeah, it was.
Because of her marketing association experience. My network was really regional.
Yeah, but it was quite extensive.
Yeah, you couldn't get away with anything.
No.
Anywhere.
I tried.
I know you did. And it didn't work.
No, it never did. It never did. And I will say I don't know. I still haven't determined, by the way, if it's a blessing or a curse that I still keep running into people that remember me when, and it's like, hand down at waist, I still don't know if that's good or bad.
Well, I tell you what, it from a social perspective.
By the way, horrifying because I don't remember any names.
Right. That's okay.
Okay.
But from a social perspective, as a younger person,
yep,
you were more adept at communicating with adults than most of your peers were. And I think the reason for that is because we took you to so many things that we went to, and that you had to communicate, because I was out gallivanting around doing my networking and seeing the people that I had to see at those events.
Yep.
And I would leave you and Mom alone, or sometimes you would be sitting under the table at some event, just playing with a game or something, or a truck, and people would come up and talk to you.
Yeah, I mean and this comes up a lot. It's part of it's the only child thing. I think if you if I had a sibling, you wouldn't have taken two of us.
We may have,
maybe
but not as often.
But like I have aunts and uncles in the valley that are not blood related because of how often I would see them at that time. And them it's nice to run into, but like and now because I worked with you for so long, it's blurred now that I don't know how there are a lot of people that know me that I have no idea how they know me. Mm-hmm. And I still haven't figured out the tact other than just like ignoring that and moving on.
Or you can just ask.
I don't know.
There's a lot of people that come up to me and know me, but that say they know me.
Yep.
But it could be because they heard me speak. And I spoke to so many groups around the valley.
Okay.
That people may have heard me speak multiple times, but there were 100 people in the audience or 150 people in the audience. I couldn't pick one person out.
Okay.
But that may be how they know me.
You also taught, right, for a bit?
Yes.
At various institutions around the valley? And
mainly community colleges, yeah.
Okay. And in various things?
Mainly it was nonprofit management.
Okay. I've been saving this because I've been very curious. Like, I have floundered from thing to thing and not really found I was comfortable working for you. Was that the career I should be in? I don't know. And I think it's the same is true of other things, but like, and I had a hand at teaching for a little bit, like for like half a semester. And I actually, you and I taught together
right
at a certain point, but, which led to me teaching a class in, I don't remember what, I think it was like presentational technology or something
like that.
For like a semester or something. But like, you've been very good at not saying like, hey, you should do this thing. Has it been easy to just kind of like not say, hey, you should do that thing?
No, not in a minute. It has not been easy. And let me meld two things together here.
Okay.
My philosophy in parenting was never to tell you what you need to do in terms of work or life.
Yep.
There were a couple of times when I did tell you what you needed to do because you asked that opinion.
I asked
opinion
for
of
it.
me.
Sure.
But that's one philosophy. The second philosophy was that I needed you to make your own mistakes and tried not to protect you from making those mistakes unless it was dangerous.
Yep.
And from that's where you get that, or I didn't tell you what direction to go. And I know a lot of parents who managed their kids.
Yep.
And they managed their kids' lives. And they wouldn't be where they are today without their parents.
I wouldn't be here without you, though, either.
Well, it's a different way. In a different way.
All right.
They wouldn't be where they are, is what I meant.
That's fair. But like, I don't know, because I'm not a parent. And it's obviously a conversation that happens in this house because, like, at a certain point, you don't want to be like a 70-year-old new father.
Right.
But, like, because I don't know, and I've got friends that have kids, like, I just think, like, I felt like I asked when I was supposed to, like, for your opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, I don't know if it, like, it feels like that's the way it should have been. Like, it feels like that was the right thing for me.
That's good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
That worked.
But now, you know, if you want to tell me I should definitely get this job, like, that's fine. Like, cause here's the thing. It comes up on this show quite a bit when we talk about, like, people that know what they want to do. And people that kind of eventually figure it out. I'm just interested in too many things.
Well, there's
and I can blame you for that, by the way, because you seem to be interested in a lot of things.
Yes, that's true. I'm a curious person. And
we have an overlap of immense, like, our Venn diagram is not a circle, but it's not a
that
circle.
Far apart. Yeah. The thing that I think is the most fascinating thing about our overlapping Venn diagrams, if you want to call it that, or the reason that we're interested in many different things, is that we didn't have a focused education. And what I mean by that is we were both in the liberal arts.
Yep.
And I have my opinion on education is an outlier. Most people think that you get an education to get a job. My philosophy on education is you go to college to train your mind.
Okay.
To learn how to learn. And if you do college right, you're never going to stop learning or being curious about learning. And I think you've got that from what your background was. Mom and I got it from where we came from. And frankly, for both of us majoring in social psychology,
yeah,
and that was a big focus of ours. I ran out of courses to take in social psych by my senior year, and I graduated early, so I only had half a senior year. I ended up taking graduate level social psych courses to have other social psych courses to take.
Okay.
So I had a lot of those, but I also had a pretty broad cadre of other courses that I took. We used our education every day of our careers, both of us.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, here's a question. I've said this before. I learned a lot more out of the classroom than I did in.
At college. Yeah.
Was that true for you?
It was mixed. I learned a lot in the classroom.
Okay.
But I also learned a lot out of the classroom.
All right.
So I can't put a 50-50, 60-40 on it.
No, that's fair. That's fair. I just know for me it was like astronomically more outside of the classroom. And part of that is I did it to myself. Like, I got involved and I learned how to lead, despite the fact that I don't want to be a leader, and which is a different,
right.
There's a whole.
You had an opportunity to do things at Keystone that very few people in larger campuses have the opportunity to do, in terms of the breadth and depth of leadership positions that you were able to hold.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's, I honestly don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing.
Well, it was a learning experience.
Well, yeah.
For one. Two, you had an incredibly positive relationship with the school president.
But that I believe, because I also had a relationship with two of the vice presidents. And I think that goes back to you taking me to events and being able to talk to somebody decades older than me.
Right.
Because I was not intimidated. He was the thing about the president at the time was, given the age gap, he could have retired a long time ago. There were people on campus that looked at him like their grandfather and treated him like with baby hands, and I just talked to the guy. Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of that other piece.
Right. And he appreciated that relationship.
Yeah,
he did.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I liked it too. And the thing that I haven't figured out yet is, and especially when you talk about like now the podcast, the blog, maybe getting into video, like, I have a greater fear of success than I do failure, which I've talked about before, mm-hmm. But I don't know where the fear of failure comes from, because I don't remember failing that much. If I'm like, I'm not talking about grades, but just general,
I understand.
Like I tried to do a thing and failed, and I don't remember that, so I don't know why I'm afraid of it so much.
We're all afraid of failure. I mean, it's human nature. I mean, that's nothing new.
Maybe I want to get back to our Venn diagram for a moment. You because this started slightly before you retired. But trading books with you mm-hmm. has been a joy mm-hmm. that I didn't know I needed until we started doing it. Because it's not like I inherited a lot of books from you, mm-hmm. so it's not like we didn't read similar things.
Books, yeah.
But like just the fact that we were picking up new books and trading them off has been, I don't know, enlightening a bit. Because we do kind of have interests all over the place. Mm-hmm. Also, would you have picked up the guitar without me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I picked up guitar when we were in Honesdale, if you recall.
Yeah, but I had already been.
Yeah, you had, but I needed whether it would have been a guitar or something else.
Yep.
It was almost banjo.
Okay.
But the guy left. The teacher left the area, so that wasn't going to happen.
Yep.
And I found a really good guitar teacher. In fact, if I had stayed with him,
yeah,
I probably would have been a much different guitar player than I am today.
Okay.
Because I didn't start playing until I was in my 40s. I had never played a musical instrument before. So I was intimidated from the get-go. And I'm still intimidated.
I don't know why. You're better than I am.
I don't think so.
I think so.
But we're different.
Well,
but I think one of the things that I needed guitar as a therapy. It was therapy for me because it got me thinking about something other than work, and work was that I was doing
at that time.
At that time was all consuming.
But here's a question. Wasn't it that way up until you retired? I mean, you still had guitar, so you had an escape at that point.
In a different way.
Okay.
In a different way. The stress levels weren't nearly as high.
Okay.
Except that I was running the place, and there's a different stress level when you're the
boss.
The boss. Because you have the lives of X number of employees and their families that you're responsible for. And I took that very seriously.
Is there, because I know my anxiety is slightly different, but like it feels like we all deal with you, myself, and one uncle seem to have a similar like stress tolerance. Mm-hmm. Is that genetic, or is it just like kind of circumstantial?
I think that's life experience. I think the three people that you're talking about are the only three people in our immediate family that have gone away to school.
Okay.
that went away to college.
Yeah.
The others stayed home or
Okay.
didn't go to college
Okay.
or were very close to home.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think that's a life experience which is different than those folks who commute to college or live within, even closer than you lived when you were at Keystone, because you were about a little over an hour away.
I might as well
Keystone.
have been. Yeah, but
but that could have been a world away, depending on.
Yeah, I came home like 3 times. Freshman year I came home to do laundry, and by like the second semester I stayed on campus to do laundry.
And we tried to convince the college to keep the doors open year round so that you could stay there.
And I did.
And they did.
I stayed. There was at least one Thanksgiving break I stayed. I have no idea why. There was 2 winter sessions that I was there for,
and 2 summers.
2 summers, which is why, had it not been for the on-campus requirement for credits my senior year, I might have graduated in December too. Mm-hmm. Although
they wouldn't have been. They wouldn't have been as happy to see you leave in December as they were in June. Or May, whenever that was, graduation was.
I don't think I think I'm the only one in the family got a standing ovation for leaving.
Well, you got the biggest cheer from the faculty of leaving.
That's true.
You had a reputation.
I don't know if it was deserved.
In some ways, it was, and people didn't know you by your name. So
I don't know if that helped or not.
More people knew you by your pseudonym than they knew you by your given name.
That's true. Which is still true. I've kept that, apparently. That's been a nice chip.
Whatever.
I don't know. Has it you didn't read the blog much when I was writing.
I didn't read it as much as I listened to your podcasts.
Okay.
I wasn't as regular.
Well, part of that was circumstance. Mm-hmm. But I also think that this is a medium more for you to consume.
Not necessarily. I do a lot of more reading than I do listening. This is the only podcast that I really listen to on a regular basis. And the difference is I can multitask and listen to this at the same time.
As he tunes me out and just listens to the guest.
I can't read when I'm doing it.
Yeah.
But I could do other stuff.
Yeah. You can't write either. I can't write. But have you adjusted now? This is years into your retirement at this point.
I'm starting my 5th year of retirement.
And have you, this is good? You're good?
Oh, I've been great.
Okay.
I've enjoyed it.
All right.
And I think there are 3 things that I have enjoyed most about retirement.
Yeah.
One is the lack of stress.
Okay.
Of being the boss.
Okay.
If I weren't the boss, I might not have retired as early as I did. But being the boss, that comes along with the stresses, as I mentioned before.
Sure.
Second, I've been able to read a heck of a lot more and read a variety of things. And I've been reading both paper and digital.
Yep.
I've learned to read digital, which wasn't one of those things that I wanted to do, but I've been able to find a reasonably inexpensive source of books online that I can get cheaply, and it's rather than having I'd have a house full of books, even after I got rid of a lot of books when I retired.
Yeah.
And then the third thing is that I've been able to spend the time doing the things that I prefer to do.
Yeah.
The boards that I'm on are things that I wanted to do. Playing guitar, taking guitar lessons, doing the reading. Those are things I want to spend my time doing. We would like to travel more, but circumstances didn't permit that.
Yeah.
To as much as we'd like, and hopefully we'll be able to get back to that.
Okay. I have had a taste of this. I've treated my unemployment as a somewhat retirement. This is what it would be like. Mm-hmm. I'm not on as many boards as you, and I still have this content stuff that I'm churning out, it feels kind of nice, but like I'm only 40. So like the stress level of like, well, can I afford to have a retirement when I'm young enough to appreciate it is like steadily growing year after year.
Yeah, but the concept of retirement for your generation, I think, is going to be different than it is for my generation.
All right, but here's a question. I put out one blog a week. I put out one podcast every 2. And I for the foreseeable future, that doesn't seem like it's going to change. And I've done such as part of what would have been my retirement. Does that seem like too much?
No.
Okay.
It doesn't.
All right.
I think the hard part is tracking down the people to talk to on your podcast.
That's all. Well,
that's the more difficult piece. But as long as you're comfortable doing that, I don't think that's overwhelming. No.
Yeah. I look at it like, I don't need to make money at it as long as it's fun. And, luckily, you and Mom have been pretty supportive and haven't been asking me like when I'm going to write my next book or a book.
No, we've been asking her that question. What about the third book?
Yeah, she's got to finish this. She's got to finish the trilogy. Similar to episode 50, I think you've heard like that with my mother. I have a great relationship with my father, as some of the discussion can attest. And we have grown into this relationship as that is part of what growing up is all about. I think you can also agree that while we often joke that I am my father's son, it comes up quite a bit during episode 50, it's not really a joke. I am, in many aspects of who I have become, my father's son. I enjoyed having my father on the show, and now that the first episode is out of the way, I don't believe it will be his last. Again, I don't take for granted the relationships I have with my parents, and I hope to have them both on again, as some of these conversations we might have anyway, but to have them for posterity seems extremely worthwhile. And I can say this without a shadow of a doubt. I am proud to have worked for him and with him. I'm happy he's enjoying his retirement because he deserves it. When it comes to fathers and sons, there are plenty of cinematic moments to derive comparison and inspiration. But for me, I just hope that, unlike Indiana Jones, I do not leave just when I become interesting. Or at the very least, I haven't left just when I became interesting. With that, have you reached out to either of your parents recently or just a friend? Perhaps you should. And remember, we are all children in front of our parents. Thanks for listening to The Palmer Files, episode 100. And now for the official business. The Palmer Files releases every 2 weeks on Tuesdays. If you're still listening, I encourage you to join the discussion. You can find all related ways to contact myself in the show notes, and I can forward any messages on to my father. The music for this episode was provided by Henno Heitur. Links to the previous episode mentioned and other things can also be found in the show notes. Email can be sent to this show at thepalmerfiles@gmail.com. And remember, your home for all things Agent Palmer is agentpalmer.com. All right, Dad, do you have one final question for me?
I do. And my final question for you goes back a bit.
Okay.
When you came back from Israel,
yeah,
at the end of your what would have been your junior year of high school.
Yep.
And we told you that the likelihood of you going back to your high school was not likely.
Yeah.
What went through your mind when we had that summer when we were going through that?
So there are two pieces to this because there are actually three pieces. The first is the social aspect. I didn't care. Like it's really hard to go back to that. But like one of the reasons I didn't care was because Zapata is my best friend and he was a year ahead of me.
And he was already gone.
And he had just graduated. And there were other people in that crew that I was the youngest kid in the crew I hung out with. So I was closer to the people that were not going to be in high school anymore. So from a social aspect, it didn't matter as much. The other piece of it, which scared the crap out of me, was the possibility of, because there were two other possibilities if I didn't go back, and it was a private school or a college with an early acceptance. Mm-hmm. The private school scared me because I didn't want to start over for a year. Mm-hmm. The college excited me because it felt like what I had just gotten back from. But the before the acceptance letter came, I was just like, I don't know if the devil I don't know for a year is better than just going back. And so we didn't talk about that because luckily things just worked out in a timely manner. Like we didn't have to rush or anything.
You got offered you got offered acceptance at your interview.
I did. And I still don't know what I said. I
have no idea what you said
because it was me. You weren't. I mean, I
know it was you.
It was just me in there with the
dean of
dean of admissions. Although the dean of admissions retired like 14 months later, so there is a possibility that he was like, "Well, I'm not going to be here, so what does it matter?"
I don't think he thought that way.
Okay, fair enough. But there was a little bit of scaredness for if it didn't happen the way it did. Because going to a private school was a bit scary to start over for 1 year. And like, I think I had the conversation with somebody at one point, which was because I had a few smart friends at the time that were like, well, you just did a semester kind of starting over all by yourself. But I didn't see that as valuable because everybody that was on that trip had done a semester by themselves. I wasn't going to be dropped into year 12 of 1 for me and 5, 10, 12 for everybody else. Right. So the best situation is what happened. Mm-hmm. The other situations I was not scared of, but more nervous about.
Okay.
Because it was just like I didn't know how that would be. But I will ask you, I presume you would have jumped at the opportunity at that age to go overseas?
I don't know. But the difference was my mother probably wouldn't have liked me leaving for that period of time.
Okay. My mother didn't.
The Italian mother, it's a little bit different.
Okay.
It's a just different generation. You got to remember that.
Was it okay? But
it's a different generation.
It's a different generation.
And exchange programs weren't nearly as popular or as well known as they were when you went.
But how much of it would have also been that you were the oldest?
Not much.
Okay, that wouldn't have mattered as much?
I don't think it would have mattered.
Okay.
No. And you got to remember, I went to a high school different than my 3 brothers did.
Okay.
So I was the outlier in a lot of different ways anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'm thankful for the opportunity. I still think it's one of those weird I look at early admittance to Keystone the same way I look at going to Israel, which is you and Mom helped facilitate it once it happened, but I feel like it literally fell into those opportunities. Mm-hmm. Like I didn't seek them out necessarily. Keystone maybe more than Israel, but like these were just situations that kind of happened to me.
Well, there were things that happened to you that people saw a solution for you, not necessarily us,
Yeah.
but significant people that we knew saw a solution for you that worked out for the best.
Yeah. But I fell into these, and it's one of the reasons that I don't like the sailing metaphor of like just you go where the wind takes you, but it kind of feels like that's the way it's been. Like how I ended up working for you the last time was that somebody left at the right time, which happened to be 2 years after I had started a business that gave me the skills to fill that position.
Right.
There's like, if that happens a year prior where I have a lot less experience, or a year after, maybe that doesn't happen.
Right.
And so like everybody has a lot of happenstance, but all the major events have had an inordinate amount of like, had the die roll gone a different way.
Serendipity is an awesome thing. And in a lot of ways, serendipity has made you a big part of what you are today.
Yeah.
And without that serendipity, we wouldn't be here right now.
And I mean, you get some credit for that too.
To a degree. Yeah. And, we don't say this enough.
Yeah.
But we're proud of the person you have become.
Okay.
And I wouldn't have it any other way.
Well, I love you.
I love you too.